Some people think the great axe is a brain-dead weapon, an unskillful, amateur-hour face-roll option of weaponry. You wanna know what I think? I see a great axe. A full-size 4x4 Jeep Wrangler Transforma Giga Chad Alpha Male. We're not just spinning to win, we're out here mowing the grass of the battlefield, chopping down every peasant in sight, and weed whacking like we're getting paid for it. So the next time you pick up a great axe, just know you're not just choosing a weapon, you're choosing a goddamn lifestyle. Welcome to the Great Axe Club. Welcome to Scripted Gaming. Hey guys, Border here, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at a beginner's combat guide for all those looking to improve their skills in PvP and PVE. I had a friend join Albion online recently, and he asked me, do you have any beginner combat guides I can follow? And I realized, no, I haven't made that video yet actually. So that's what today is going to be all about. It's going to be about combat basics and little tips and tricks to get you guys started. So this video is going to be broken down into 3 sections. Number 1 is going to be about auto attacking and movement. Number 2 is going to be spells and abilities. And 3 is going to be approaching a fight and what abilities you should be using. So without further ado, let's get into it. So to start us off, let's talk about movement. So when playing on PC, you can do it a couple different ways. Using your right mouse button, you can right click on the ground and your character will travel to set location. Or you can click, hold, and drag your right mouse button in the location you wish to travel to. Either is completely fine, it's personal preference, but what you don't want to be doing is using your left mouse button to travel. And I'll show you why. So say you're clicking away with your left mouse button, an enemy is approaching and you want to travel to a certain location. Instead of traveling to set location, you accidentally click on some rough logs, something in the environment. That's not what we want, so you can save yourself the embarrassment and just use right mouse button, so that way you can move around without accidentally targeting the environment. For the next part, let's talk about auto attacking. So simple enough, auto attacking, you can simply target something by pressing left click and then again left click to auto attack. And I know what you're saying, Border, I've played this game, I know how to auto attack, and you know what, you're right. So I'm going to show you a better way to auto attack. So same concept, you find an enemy, left click to target. Instead of pressing left click again continuously, spamming your left click, you can do this. When targeted, you can just press spacebar, move around with your right mouse button, and then spacebar to auto attack every time your auto attack is ready to swing. This is a much more efficient way to auto attack without constantly left clicking around on the screen. So once you have a target, just simply spacebar every time another auto attack is ready to swing. Moving on to our next section, we're going to be talking about spells and abilities. So if you're new to Albion Online or MMOs in general, these set of skills can be a little bit overwhelming, confusing at first. But that's okay, because we're going to be breaking down each one individually just to give you a brief description of what spell does what. And I know this may vary based on what weapon you use, but still this will give you a general idea of what slot does what. So to start us off, let's talk about the Q ability. So when it comes to the Q, it is typically your filler ability. It always has a short cooldown and it doesn't cost much energy. So when it comes to the Q, you want to be using it basically as often as possible. The thing about the Q with almost every weapon is that it typically has a stacking mechanic with it. So for the axe for example, you can use Q and it'll apply a bleed to the target. This can stack up 3 times. When it reaches the 3rd stack, the enemy receives a healing reduction. So you want to definitely read the tooltip of each each weapon, and take advantage of the stacking mechanism. Moving on to our W abilities, the W slot typically consists of a utility, crowd control, or buff type of ability. So for example here with our Great Axe, we have Adrenaline Boost, which increases our damage, movement speed, and attack speed. So as you can guess, this isn't a spell you want to use for no reason. You want to combine it with your damage abilities, your movement speed, your attack speed, whatever. There are some Ws that do strictly damage, but I think most good builds have a W that is a utility-based ability. So just keep that in mind. Moving on to E abilities, the E slot is your major weapon cooldown. So for DPS, this is your big damage ability. For healers, this is your big heal. If you're playing a tank, this is your major engage or counter engage ability. So when it comes to the E spell, it's critical that you use it efficiently, as DPS typically rely on their E spell to kill things effectively. Healers rely on their E's to save their allies. Tanks rely on their E to get that big engage, the big counter engage to save their team. So you definitely want to be using your E spell efficiently, no matter what that E ability is on your weapon. Moving on to the R ability, the R slot is from your chess piece, which typically consists of a utility or damage dealing spell. So for example, my R slot is Bloodlust, which comes from Mercenary Jacket, which heals me every time I deal damage. So this is a more utility based spell. But no matter what it is, the R slot is a big cooldown. So you definitely want to be using this methodically and not randomly. Moving on to the D ability. Your D ability is from your helmet, and it usually consists of a spell of damage, crowd control, or utility. So for example here, I have Retaliate, which is from the Hunter Hood, which is extremely popular in PvP right now. It increases my damage resistances and reflects 85% of damage incoming. So I would want to use this when the enemy is about to attack me for a hefty amount of damage to reflect as much as possible, basically. No matter the ability though, your D is also a major cooldown, so definitely use it wisely. Moving on to our F ability comes from our boots, which more often than not grants us a movement speed buff. So for example here, from Soldier Boots, I have Rejuvenating Sprint that increases my movement speed for 5 seconds and also heals me for each tick of the boots. 2 effective ways to use boots, pretty self-explanatory when you want to engage an enemy that is running away, or if you find yourself low on health and you want to disengage and run away and reset the fight. Next up we have our 1 slot ability, which are our potions. So for example here we have our poison potions, which can basically be thrown at an enemy that deals damage and decreases their resistances. So you'd want to use this when you're ready to deal damage essentially. But you could also use something like a resistance potion, which is also super effective. It essentially decreases the damage you take for a short period of time. Very good for countering other damage. So there's offensive and defensive options. So just something to think about when you choose your build essentially. Do you want more offense or do you need more defense? And moving on, we have our 2 slot ability, which is our food, which is essentially a one-time buff that lasts 30 minutes. For example, here we have our Goat Stew, which increases our damage dealt by 5% for 30 minutes. This is obviously a offensive type of food, but you can also offer something different. You can go for a wheat soup, which increases your health regeneration outside of combat. This would be a good option for something like if you're in between dungeon pulls, you regen health faster and you're able to pull the next set of mobs quicker. Or say you're out in the open world and you want to regenerate health faster in between PvP or PVE or whatever. So it really depends on what situation you're in and what kind of build you're using. And last but not least, we have our capes, which is not on the ability bar because it is a strict passive. But here we have a regular cape, no ability, it is just straight increased energy and energy regen. If you're first getting into the game, you don't have a lot of silver, I recommend just getting a regular cape like this. This will just help you with your energy, which will get the job done. But once you get a little more confident and you have more silver, you can use a ability based cape such as this, the Thetford cape, which you can see deals damage when you use an auto attack and bounces to the nearest mob. These capes are obviously a lot more effective, but cost much more silver, so again, wouldn't recommend these until you're much more used to the game. So for the third and final section of this video, I wanted to give a brief demonstration on how I would approach a fight and what I think of in terms of what ability I should be using. So we can start by using our food to make sure the buff is applied, and then typically I would approach the enemy, PvP or PvE, and start applying my Q, which with the axe is bleed charges. I want to stack this all the way up to 3 times, and then I can use my W for increased damage and movement speed, followed by my E, which at any point can be thrown in there with a poison potion for more damage. Notice I'm using auto attacks in between my Qs to maximize damage. And I've also lost a little bit of health, so I can use my R, Bloodlust, to heal with each attack I deal. And yeah, you can basically just rinse and repeat that kind of DPS rotation until your enemy is dead. But that pretty much about does it for my beginner combat guide. If you guys wanted something a little bit more advanced, you can let me know in the comments below, and I could definitely make a guide more for experienced players. But regardless, I want to thank you for watching today's video, and if you made it this far, I want to invite you and join in on the giveaway of 30 Tomes of Insight. I thought this would be a good beginner's way to help you get your combat fame up. If you want to join the giveaway, all you need to do is subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your in-game name in the comments below, and I'll be picking a winner in the Discord 1 week from now. But that about does it for me. I want to thank you so much for your continued support, as I really appreciate all the feedback. But until next time, stay safe, stay positive, and I'll see you next time.